In this video, you're gonna learn how to communicate with the keyboard player in your worship band. David Pfaltzgraff from SundaySounds.com is going to unpack for us some common sounds and effects that will empower the keyboard player on your team. By the end of this video, you'll know how to communicate with your keyboard player with both clarity and confidence. Coming up. My name is Jake Goslin. I'm the creator of ChurchFront.com, helping you lead gospel-centered and tech-savvy worship. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your worship ministry. Today, I'm hanging out in Des Moines, Iowa with David Pfaltzgraff. He's the founder of SundaySounds.com. He and his team are creating amazing products to equip worship bands and worship teams, really specifically in the area of worship keyboards. So we're gonna link his website and YouTube channel below so you can keep up to date with what they are up to. One of the reasons I want to come hang here with David is not only were we filming a masterclass for Worship Leader School, but we wanted to create some YouTube content to help you as a worship leader really equip and empower the keyboardists in your band. So the way this video is going to work, David is going to first walk us through the common words used to describe the sounds that you can produce with a modern worship keyboard rig. And then we'll talk about the common effects that you can apply to your keyboard rig. So you'll have just a lot more clarity as a worship leader to work alongside of your worship keyboardist, and you guys can just be sort of operating in the same zone and frequency when it comes to really achieving that sound that you're desiring. So let's go ahead and talk about the common just sounds that we're trying to achieve in worship.
Yeah, so like Jake said, it's super important to just have some common language, some common terminology. Now we could spend hours and hours and hours talking about all sorts of different types of sounds, but I want to highlight just a few of the most commonly thrown out, like almost like buzzwords, right? And actually try and demystify them and clarify them so that worship leaders watching this video can sort of have that same conversation with their keys players. So the first buzzword or descriptor I want to address is the word warm. Stuff is called warm all the time, but it's kind of hard to quantify what that means. So oftentimes worship leaders will ask for like a warm pad sound. But I feel like maybe a lot of keys players, especially if you're just starting to really try and modernize your key sounds, don't really know like does it have a hotter temperature than what's a cold pad? So what a warm pad means to me is a pad that has like this nice low mid sort of energy. It's not getting in the way, it's not sitting on top of what the electric guitars or the vocals are doing, and it's also not really getting in the way of what the bass or the kick drum might be doing. It's sort of serving as this glue foundation underneath everything. And why I think warm is an apt description for this is because it doesn't have any of that bright sizzle on top that can distract for quieter moments. This is a type of pad sound that's just sitting in the right space, leaving lots of room for everybody, but still adding something, adding this feeling of connectedness, adding this feeling of intimacy. That's why I think warm is a great descriptor for a pad sound. So can I demonstrate for you guys what a warm pad sound would be?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay. So this is just a basic warm pad.
What's that effect you're adding to it there?
So I'm opening up the filter, which adds a little bit of brightness on top, just a little bit of energy, but you don't lose any of that warmth down in the lower range. One of the really important things about finding like a warm or sort of just underneath everything kind of pad is making sure it's not too static. It's not just this droning sound that people think is like feedback or something. You want there to still be some motion, a little bit of movement or energy to the sound. In the keys world, that's called like some modulation, like a little bit of motion in pitch or in volume, something that just keeps it from sounding like it's just always just a flat line sound playing like a pure tone of whatever the chord is. Something that has a little bit of movement to it, I think is the other key ingredient in finding a really nice warm pad sound.
Sneeze.
Bless you.
So that's the warm pad sound. What's the next common type of sound we use in worship?
Next, let's talk about the word bright. And this is sort of in opposition or the opposite side of the warm type of sound. And I'm going to talk specifically about how this affects synth sounds, how it affects pads, but you can use the word bright to describe a piano sound or any other type of synth sound just as easily. So when I think of bright, we're talking about stuff in the higher frequency spectrum that's actually maybe above or right alongside what the guitars are doing, that has a lot of energy on the top end, that's perceived as more aggressive, more powerful, and it's more complex harmonically. So you might still be playing in the same range on the keyboard, but there's these harmonic frequencies on top of it that add a little bit of extra energy. So this pad sound I'm going to show you, it starts off with a little less brightness, but then as I move the mod wheel up, you're going to feel this lift in energy. Now oftentimes with these bright synth pad sounds, you're still serving as sort of the glue of the mix, holding everything else together, but you're able to dynamically lift as your drummer switches to the hi-hat or starts washing out cymbals, as your electric guitarists start playing with more intensity. This increase in brightness from the pad sort of goes right along with that, still serving as the foundation, but rising as everyone else does too. So this is a bright pad.
I feel like pads today in modern worship are just like an evolution of the organ. I feel like I felt like I was almost
totally.
in a cathedral, like hearing those types of tones.
Yeah, and there's the similar mindset of being able to pull out the old organ drawbars and have all this high frequency content. We're doing the same thing with synth sounds, but we're able to do so in a way that's really organic, with nice smooth transitions between the chords.
Yep. Great. So we have warm, we have bright. What's the next common term?
So lastly, let's talk about, I think, probably the most overused buzzword right now in the worship space. Let's talk about a shimmer pad, right? So Strymon came out with a Big Sky effect pedal. Every guitarist in the world bought it. Now shimmer is all over everything. Well, you can have a shimmery texture or quality to your pad sounds, which does something really specific in the mix, but it's really easy to overuse this kind of effect or to overwhelm what your vocalist or your guitarist is doing. So you have to make sure that you clarify kind of why you're using this type of sound, where this type of pad sound actually sits in the mix. So let me show you a shimmer pad sound, and note that I'm going to use really sparse, basic voicings to leave lots of room for instrumentation around it.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
No, it really does sound great. I love those, love the tones, and now we know how to describe those accurately. Now let's talk about effects. Those are very common things to do too. Like we apply effects to a guitar, but we can actually apply effects to keyboards.
Yeah, just with a couple of simple effects you can apply in like any software like MainStage or Ableton, you can give your keyboard player a lot more freedom to make some artistic decisions. And effects are all over the key sounds that you're hearing on today's top worship songs. So you can't just know what a pad is or a piano is. If you really want to get in that same space, you have to sort of consider how you can affect those sounds as well. So for this video, I thought we might just use a piano sound so that it's really obvious how these effects are actually altering the sound, but a lot of these principles will be the same on electric pianos, on synth sounds, on arpeggiated sounds as well. So let me pull up a basic piano sound here. And first off, I want to talk about reverb. This just adds a sense of size, depth, and space to your sound. If you're a guitarist, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the effect that reverb can have, and you kind of use it on keys in the same way. It can sort of soften up the initial impression of what you're playing, create some room, and it also increases kind of the hang time of your chords. So if you're playing like worship type stuff, just letting those whole notes ring out, adding a little reverb in can really thicken things up, make things more interesting.
Nice.
So I'll start off with no reverb, and then I'll just dial it in with my MIDI controller here.
Okay. I really feel like that helps connect especially on the higher end, those melody lines that you play. It just makes it flow so much nicer. Yeah.
Especially if the piano is like the only thing in the mix. If you don't have a pad sitting underneath, just a little bit of that extra reverb size and hang behind it can really nicely transition between all that stuff. Yeah.
What's the next effect?
So let's talk about delay, every guitarist's favorite topic, right?
Yeah.
So all the guitarists discovered delay, like 2002?
Yep.
Right? Keyboard players are just getting around to it now, but in the same way that you can really change the character and the rhythmic complexity of an electric guitar with delay, you can achieve a lot of the same cool effects with piano. This is especially commonly used on some slow songs where you'll just kind of hit a chord on the one and then let the delay trails sort of add that extra oomph to it. And the other side of that is when you're playing the piano as sort of like a lead instrument, where you're doing like a melodic line in the right hand that's sort of carrying an instrumental or adding that extra little bit of memorability to a bridge or something. So for this video, I'm going to dial the reverb back down just a little bit so it's not too dry, and then I'll bring in a little bit of delay. And this is just a simple quarter note delay, but just giving your keys player the ability to add in just a little bit of this into the mix, especially for like worshipful moments, can add a lot without having to worry about syncing up exactly to the click. Just a little bit of texture, a little bit of that delay repeat underneath can go a long way.
Yep.
So here's without delay, and then I'll dial it in.
Love it.
Yeah, it's just as simple as that. Just a small amount in the background makes the changes between those chords a lot more interesting. As I'm hitting those little passing tones, there's just this little bit of texture behind it that really thickens things up. It makes it more interesting than just the piano on its own.
And we have one more effect we're going to chat about.
Yeah, so I want to come back to the word shimmer. We already talked about shimmer when it comes to describing a pad, but you can also apply shimmer as an effect to any sound that you have, especially if you're software based. There's multiple ways to program this, or plugins you can buy that'll give you that sound, or you can even run the output of your keys through an effect pedal that has a shimmer effect built in. So I want to demonstrate now how, instead of having a pad sound underneath everything providing the ambience, I'm just going to turn on a shimmer reverb, play only the piano. And the thing that's really nice about this is, instead of this pad holding out infinitely forever, the shimmer sort of swells in behind what I'm doing, and that kind of swells back down. So if I'm moving through chords, it's never building up to the point of overwhelming the initial playing, and it feels really organic and natural. It's a really great effect to give your keys players. So I'll bring the delay down and then dial in a little bit of shimmer here, and I'm just gonna jump right in. You'll hear the shimmer from the get-go. And this is like, it's a pretty fancy sounding sound, right? It's got a nice production value element to it, but it doesn't require a lot of theory knowledge to use. You can really just play whatever you were gonna play And as long as you're not overplaying, it's going to make you sound like you really know what you're doing. So it's a great idea to empower your keys players with a shimmer effect, because it's going to make them feel like a boss. Like they're going to feel really good when they bring that shimmer in, and it just adds this ethereal sort of ambience without having to do a lot of retraining or programming sounds.
Yeah.
Put it on like anything in a tasteful way,
Yep.
and it's going to add that little bit of layer on top.
Yeah, love it. Man, thanks so much for unpacking these terms. Anything else you wanted to pack?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you can clarify that terminology, figure out how you're going to talk about the things you're asking for, then you're well on your way.
You may be wondering, how can you go about actually getting all the gear and software together to produce these sounds now that you know how to communicate with your keyboard player? Well, make sure you check out the other video that David and I made. We actually walk you through step by step everything that we're using here. David and his team at sundaysounds.com are producing amazing tools and resources for worship bands, especially in the area of the keyboard. They have a template called Sunday Keys. That's what actually we're running right now on this computer, producing the sounds that you heard demonstrated today. So make sure you go pick up that template. You're gonna load it into main stage and you'll be up and running in just a few minutes with just amazing sounds for your worship band. Make sure you also subscribe to the Sunday Sounds YouTube channel, where David is making a ton more tutorials on this topic. And if you want to take the next step with this training and really dive deep into equipping and empowering the keyboardist in your worship band, then check out worshipleaderschool.com. David has actually created a whole entire masterclass training that lives within inside a Worship Leader School that's going to walk you through in depth all the geared software for the setup, as well as how to work alongside your keyboard player so you have smooth transitions in worship, that you have some great underscoring, as well as even diving deeper into some of these effects that we touched on today. So go to worshipleaderschool.com to learn more and join now. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, hit that thumbs up button and share it with your friends in worship ministry. You can check out some related content right over here, and don't forget to subscribe to the Churchfront channel so you can continue to receive all of our latest content to help you grow yourself and grow your worship ministry. You ready?
How's my hair? Still there?
Fantastic.
All right.
All right.